we get a lot of football takes, right? And we don't get a lot of sales takes. And I'm talking about genuine sales takes of, how many salesmen are out there, saying, "Hey, what is Mike genuinely selling on the trail?" Because there's in the sales world, people know whether you're a good salesman or not. And even high-end clients know that. And there seems to be a disconnect with the really high-end talent in recruiting. You know, Travis Hunter did Mike pretty dirty, right?
Yeah.
And then KJ Bolden kind of did the same thing, really kind of talked down on us after the fact, about how he was glad
Yeah.
he didn't choose Florida State, et cetera. And that there seems to be a very difficult close for the really high-end prospects as we close a recruiting class every single year. So is it Mike himself? Is it the message? Because again, when you go back to the 247 article, they don't know where they stand with these guys, and then all of a sudden they get ghosted. So what is he selling? What is the message? And is it Mike himself? Is it, when Jimbo wanted to lock somebody down, he put the blazer on, right? He's going out on the trail, he's putting the blazer on, and he's going to pick up his guy. So what is the disconnect?
Yeah. All right. First of all, that's a great question. And second, I love the Jimbo Blazer reference. And no matter what the thoughts are on Jimbo right now, we all used to love when he put that jacket on.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So I think it's a few things. And I will say this: if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be making these videos anymore. I'd be on staff closing out these recruitments. So yeah, I don't have a perfect answer, but I do have some thoughts. First of all, I do think it's a little bit of there's several factors. It's not just one thing. There's no way it's just one thing. I do think that Mike is very genuine. I think he's very likable. Like I've been around him in media settings and non-media settings, and he is just a really cool guy, like fun guy to be around. He jokes. He's like very personable. Like he'd be a cool guy to go watch a game with, right? And I think he's very genuine. But I do think I don't know that like the Bobby Bowden era of just like, you know, being a good Christian and loving their moms is like enough to get kids to commit anymore. I think you have to like look at the best recruiters. Like you have to be a little bit of a sleazeball. I don't know if that's the best word or not, but you gotta pressure a little more. I don't think we pressure kids. And maybe there's some good in that. Maybe like morally, that's kind of good. And I hate him, right? Like I can just be honest. I hate Mario Cristobal because he's just like I don't necessarily think he's a very good person. Like I think he lies and pressures kids, and I've heard things behind the scenes that are just not good. But he like is gonna close the sale, right? Like as a guy that was in sales for like 10 years, like he's gonna close the freaking sale. And you might hate him at the end of the day, but then he's gonna get the job done. And he demands perfection. The other thing that Mario does and does it really well is he demands perfection out of his staff. Like I don't think he lets his staff sleep. Christmas, like you ain't taking Christmas, go call another recruit. Our staff doesn't have that same
Mhm.
fire. And so I think that you know, I think other recruiters, like other just like down and out, like, I mean, we all knew that Tim Brewster was a sleazeball, but he was a great recruiter. Like that, I mean, you got to have a little bit of that to you or to people on your staff, right? Like, I don't think that every good recruiter out there is just a bad person. Like that's not necessarily the the point that I'm trying to make, but I do think they have that like that drive to close. And I don't, I think Mike and them, that I think some of the things he said, like, hey, this program isn't for everyone. It's for all the real ones. Like, no, this program is for like the 5 stars, right? Like, go, tell them like, don't be buddy, like pressure them into staying. And I understand the idea of like, oh, well, if they weren't, if you have to pressure them, then they weren't going to stay anyway. And it's like, well, it worked for Armando Blunt, like it worked for Zaquan Patterson and this guy, that guy, the other, like to go to Miami. So I don't know. I think that that's part of it. I think that, the staff is the biggest problem. I think at the end of the day, the head coach is very, very important for recruitments. I think that you having a staff that finishes and closes and cares about recruiting is really, really important. And then obviously like the staff is going to take on the personality of the coach. I also think that Florida State, because of the way they built, and I have no problem with the way that Mike turned things around through the portal, it brought us success a lot faster, and ultimately winning games on the field is what matters the most. I think they've been able to be negatively recruited against due to some of their circumstances. The first couple of years, because Norvell had 8 wins over 2 years, it was very easy to negatively recruit that. The next couple of years, all of our playmakers, all of our stars were from the portal essentially. And so to high school kids, it was pretty easy to negatively recruit that. Now, I mean, Mike Norvell's seat, like you got to figure out a way to counter that. You got to figure out a way to say like, yeah, but we're winning. We're going to put the best players on the field and we're going to win, and for whatever reason, Norvell hasn't been able to counter that. His staff hasn't been able to counter some of that negative recruiting. I think they've, and then maybe the last part of it is I think they have a philosophical issue right now with how they construct a roster and the way that they allocate NIL resources. I thought Sinone's article was really good, talking about how they ended up having to overpay for some guys that you're seeing aren't performing on the field right now. They ended up having to overpay to keep some guys because they were scared about guys transferring out. And then those guys, like how well are they playing? So because of that, I mean, your budget is your budget every year, and you can't necessarily offer an insane package to somebody if your budget's tied up in other stuff that isn't returning, isn't a good ROI. Now, in the portal last year and the portal the year before, they got really good ROI on what they did, right? Like they did a good job. So it is a 1-year blip. It is a 1-year issue. But I think all of those things together are kind of where Florida State's issue is in recruiting. Like you got to have a better staff. You got to care about it more. You got to allocate more resources to it. There's a narrative, there's a perception. I don't know how true it is, but there's a narrative, about Florida State lowballing guys and being cheap with recruits. And, if you're Georgia, I think you can get away with that. If you're Ohio State, I think you can get away with that. If you're Bama, I think you say like, no, we're Bama. This is what we're offering of you. You want to come here? You want to go to the NFL? Great, let's go. I don't think you can do that at Florida State. Like, I understand that me and you love Florida State more than anything else in the world, and that would work for us. That might work for our kids, but that ain't working for just some random 5-star, right? Like, you gotta be fair. And so whether they're lowballing, whether they're not, I don't know, but that is the narrative. That is the perception. And so, you got to be better than that. I talked to somebody at UF. UF kind of has that same mindset too. Like they think they're the Harvard of the South or whatever. And they lowball kids at times. And they say like, well, this is the University of Florida. We're the flagship college. And that doesn't matter. Like kids don't care about that crap. Like they want money. Right. And so anyway, those are some of my thoughts. I don't know. I went on a ramble, but there's a lot of it. Like all of that stuff needs to be fixed. Like Mike has to truly care about recruiting more. I hope he does after this year. But I think Mike himself needs to care about recruiting more. And if he does, we'll see some success. If he doesn't, it's going to be tough to pull himself out of this thing. I want to take a very quick second and tell you guys about Survival Meds. I've told you about them a couple of times, but they have some awesome supplements that they've sent me, and I've tried, and I've loved the results. They've got not only a daily, pretty standard multivitamin that's called their Force Multiplier, but my favorite is their Test Fire, because after just a few days, I've noticed a difference in my energy levels. Got more to come with them soon, but as of now, if you feel like your energy is dropping or you just know you need to be on a multivitamin because life's getting after you and you're getting a little bit older, go check out my friends over at Survival Meds. Listen, they do extremely good work in not only our law enforcement community, but also they do great work with our vets, retired and active military. Make sure that you go check out Survival Meds, some of the best in the business that you can get. I've had a great experience with them so far, and I'm excited to tell you about more of them in the future.